Today's episode of Glen's Retro Show was kindly brought to you by Wade Tooley of ScanlinePBX.com. They do game reviews on both retro and modern gaming systems. You can hear them on iTunes, visit them on Facebook, or go right to their website. It's a great podcast and website. Do have a look and show your support.
Beware, I live. Run, coward.
Thanks for joining me today, everybody. Now, as you already know, if you're seeing this video, you probably saw my first two. You know I've been working on converting these little Pac-Man and Space Invaders from the original games that they were with LCD screens to a more modern Raspberry Pi. Let's just take a quick look at what the machines look like before any modification. So for the $17 you can get these for, they are quite fun, and the build quality is really not that bad. They're fun enough, and I do enjoy them. What would happen, say, if you converted them with the Raspberry Pi? Well, let's take a look at some of the things I've done so far with the Raspberry Pi and these systems. Okay, here we can see the first one I've been working on. The screen is a little bit too big, but it works well enough for the demonstration. You can see I have a Raspberry Pi Zero running in here, currently running Miss Pac-Man, and the control system is set up as follows. First, we have our 4/8-way joystick, followed by fire button number 1, fire button number 2, insert a quarter, player 1 start. Pressing both quarter and start will exit the game. We'll have an internal speaker, and on the back we have our Pi shutdown button. We'll have a location for our power off, the main power, and access to the Pi and any USB ports. So the design of the unit is really not too bad for converting over to a Pi. Let's just have a quick look and see how well it plays. So as you can see, it looks pretty well, and it does play pretty well. The controls actually are not that bad, but on this particular toy, the fire button 1 and fire button 2 are on the opposite ends of the console. So it's not always the best to use in a lot of games, but you have other options out there. Now the DreamGear 201 I actually purchased first a long time ago. It was always my intention to convert it with a Raspberry Pi, but just took me some time to figure out the best way to get in there without damaging anything. And I did find a way to get in to these units. So the one advantage to these are the insides are absolute garbage, so you're not going to worry or care about ruining them. But the joystick and the fire buttons are in a better position, and as well as having an additional button on the front cover for your shutdown. So let's go take a look at how I'm going to set up the controls on these little guys. Now the 201 has some decals on the outside that makes it a little bit more of a pain to get inside the unit. The 301 is a little bit easier to get into, but we'll get into both of them in just a moment. Okay, let's take a look at how we can set up the controls on the DreamGear. First, we have our 8-way joystick, fire button number 1, and a better positioned fire button number 2. We have an insert quarter, player start. Pressing both quarter and player start will exit the game. We have our safe shutdown for the Raspberry Pi. Now on the back of the unit, we're going to have our battery disconnect and our LED light switch, the speaker, and access to the USB ports and the Pi and anything else I could squeeze in the battery compartment. So here's the original 201, and you can see the decals require a little more work to gain access to it. It's really not too bad. Just use a hairdryer to heat up this decals a little bit, and they'll come up easy enough. And I use a little parchment paper to keep the decals from getting ruined. But then you can get pretty much easy access to the insides, as you can see here. And there's not too much inside. I will have to say that the Space Invaders and the Pac-Man, the plastics and the control circuit that they used, not that it's super high quality, but it's definitely higher quality than that was used in the DreamGear plastics and the control panel. They're both very flimsy, so definitely take care if you're working on the DreamGear units. So as you can see, as long as you take your time and are very careful, because the DreamGear plastics and the control panel circuit are very much on the delicate side, you can get it wired up to your Pi. But just take your time, again, be very careful with working with it, because it is on the delicate side. So let's have a look and see how the DreamGear 201 joystick and buttons work with Retropie. Now I'm hoping one of my screens may arrive actually today, and I can try it out for real inside the whole unit. But for right now I'm going through HDMI out to this screen, as you can see here. But the control panel is all being used, as you can see in the upper right part of the screen. And again, the control board is very flimsy in the DreamGear as opposed to the one in the Pac-Man and the Space Invaders. But once all the screws are in there, it's not too bad. I mean, I think it'll hold up fairly well. Won't know for sure until it really gets played for a while, but I will just again reiterate that the control panel in here is very delicate, and so is the plastic. Now in the 301, it's the same exact control panel circuit, so that's still flimsy, but the plastics are a little bit thicker than the 201, so that's a little bit more advantage. But to be honest, if I had a choice, I really like the Pac-Man and Space Invader better, because they feel much more sturdier in your hand. Again, the only downside is that the buttons are on the opposite sides of the joystick, so 2-button games are a bit of a pain. And again, I try and always use the original controls. I don't want to modify, at least not these first ones. Maybe I'll make a modification to the Pac-Man and Space Invaders in the next build that I do, and move some buttons around. But at least the DreamGear looks a little bit more like an arcade machine than the Pac-Man and Space Invaders. So it's just, I guess, taste, at that particular point. But overall, I'm pretty happy with the way all of them are turning out. Again, I'm using a Pi Zero in all of these guys. It's going to be powered by a lithium polymer battery, which I'm expecting to arrive any day. It'll have a charging circuit, so you'll be able to play it on external power as it charges the battery, and you can just unplug it when the battery's charged. I'm hoping to have LED indicators put on them as well, to let you know when it's on external power versus on the lithium polymer battery versus when it's charging, and again when the battery's low. I'm also hoping to add a low battery indicator, so if the battery pack does get low, it'll safely shut down your Pi rather than just crash, in case you don't happen to notice the low battery indicator on it. But again, if you can see here, I've been playing a couple of games. The joystick feels about the same in all of them, whether it be the Pac-Man, the Space Invaders, the 200, or the 301, because I think pretty much it's the same board, layout anyway, but the DreamGear does feel a little bit on the thinner side, but the feedback you get from the joysticks are all about the same, and the same with the buttons, they're all about the same. It's not going to be an NES quality type of feedback, but you know what, it's really not that bad for what they are. I mean, the Space Invaders and Pac-Man, you can get, I think right now, it's January 19th, 2017, you can get those for $9 at Bed Bath & Beyond, if you can find any still there. The DreamGear units are generally more expensive. They're about 30 bucks, and to be honest, for what they are, they're really not worth that. But if you're going to need one shell for this type of conversion, for me it was worth it. So I do hope you guys enjoy the video, and I hope to have my screens in soon so I can finally complete the project and show you all when it's done. So for right now, everyone, remember, game on. Well, today must be my lucky day. One of my screens actually came today. This is a 2.4-inch display. It's identical to the one I had previously, except that was a 2.8-inch display. The smaller form factor does sit better in the Space Invaders here. There was still going to be trimming needed at the top to get it to sit flush, but I think I'm actually going to put this one in the DreamGear 201. The little bezel that it came with kind of sits really nice around the TFT. There will be still some trimming needed on the plastic and also around the connector pins itself. They're a little bit too tight there on the right hand side, as you can see. It won't require too much, but hopefully when I shave it down it won't damage any of the pins. But hopefully in my next video we'll actually be able to see this running in the DreamGear 201. So thanks for watching, everyone, and remember, please, game on.